I make art because it's expression. It's my form of telling my stories, my form of relaying a message, my form of, just being myself. I think art is a form for, voice, form for matter, form for cultural connections. But really, it's, for me, the art is a connection to, me being not just an Indigenous person, but just being a human being in general. My name's Jakeli Swimmer, go by he, him. I guess my classification as an artist is a cartoonist, and my message is simply appreciation and representation and acknowledgement. And all these things are tied into, really just appreciating who we are, but also understanding who we are, and also realizing that we're not these monolithic people. Artists, creatures, or Indigenous people, we get put in these boxes all the time. And for me, it's like, how can I contribute to this art around us in a way that's not seen as like, oh, they just make beadwork. Oh, they're just into powwow. Oh, they're just into, feathers and headdresses, or wolves and spirit animals. And it's like, we can adapt anything into ours because we're an adaptable people. The way I consider my art is, traditionally done with contemporary means. And the reason I say that is because the way everybody looks at art, it's all about fitting into criteria. If I'd submit any of my art in, it's going to go in as contemporary or, new age, or, it can't be considered traditional because it's digitally born, or it's drawn with non-traditional items or things like that. I'm bringing a story of where I grew up. I'm bringing a story of what I saw. I'm bringing things that were taught to me by my father, by my grandmother, who was taught by her grandmother, her grandfather. And so when I'm putting this on paper, specifically when I'm talking about a cultural resource, I'm drawing that from cultural knowledge. I'm drawing that from cultural understanding. I'm drawing that from traditional knowledge, traditional understanding. I would say I started out early on as a, straight pen to paper, colored pencil to paper, shifted into like that digital aspect in a really crappy Microsoft Paint, and then just kind of came full circle and started doing Adobe Illustrator to Procreate. And yeah, I think that's how it shifted me into where I'm at right now and where I go with my art and how I approach things, because I want not clean art, but I want the best representation of my art. But there's been a lifelong, growth of that. There's been a lot of, growing pains as far as learning. I'm still learning my techniques. I'm still watching and admiring other artists. You see potters, you see wood carvers, you see basket makers, and I come from a generational line of pottery makers, and so that was an influence in itself to see creativity around you at a young age. And as I went through life, there was like little things I liked doing, going to see the Sunday Funnies, and I would go through the back of them and I'd draw like Snoopy, or, I'll recreate them verbatim, but then I started like adding a feather or something, some corny little thing to make, at that time, make it a little more like native. And so I did that for a little bit, and around 2019, after about a couple years doing this cartooning, kind of freelance cartooning, doing a little bit of being a cartoonist for my local paper, I met my partner, who's like an amazing, badass letterpress, screen printer, weaver, and just blending our styles together at times, or just talking about art. Those are the influences that make an impact on me. So I draw what we call the uktana, which comes from, ukt, like diktol, like uktol, oktol, like your eye. Uktane, it means like keen eye, meaning that's like good eyesight, like you can't get away from it. But the reason it was there because it had a diamond on its head, and I would draw and draw. Every time I saw a snake or something that looked like a snake, I just put horns and wings on it and rattlesnake tails. Uktana, I do a thing every Tuesday, which is called Uktana Tuesdays, where I sit down every week and I will just draw an Uktana. These are all things that lead me back to that childhood, like, love, and that why I love creating art is because I want to see it. I want to be able to visually see what that is. And that's indicative to my whole career, because if it's political, if it's, message, if it's an issue, I want to be able to see it, but I want other people to recognize it. And so for me, it's just that affirmation that I'm still in love with what I'm doing. And so I always go back to Uktana because it's been a part of my life since I was young. I don't know, before I probably could even remember, I've probably been hearing about it. And so that's what stays close to me, and that's why I like doing it, because I come from a family of storytellers, which I call history keepers. They didn't need a history degree like I have to be that, but it's just like, how do I fit in a modern world with this backing of a family? And it's like, I'm carrying the stories on in ways that my grandpa Running Wolf used to tell families in Big Cove about the Uktana. I'm carrying that on the way my dad told the story of the Uktanas in the waters after heavy rains to me, and like, it's just like that continuation. That thing is like, generations from now, I hope that my family's still carrying that on and carrying on that love for it, because they might not be a full into the Uktana, but they say, who loved the Uktana? My dad did, or my grandpa did, or my uncle did, and at least they know a little bit about it. And that's what I hope, to carry that cultural, traditional, historical knowledge and pass it on in some way, in some recognizable form, and to preserve it for my family.